Welcome back to the Panther Business Briefing. I'm your host, Jayson Reed, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Baran Pourtahmaseb-Sasi. In this exciting 8th episode, we'll wrap up our AI content series with one of FIU's thought leaders and entrepreneurs, Dr. Lina Bouayad. I start with a brief introduction and then proceed to the interview. Here is the recording of our discussion. We're sitting here with Dr. Lina Bouayad, the director of FIU's MBA Business Analytics program and associate professor in the Department of Information Systems and Business Analytics. Dr. Bouayad holds a PhD in business administration from USF in Tampa and specializes in the use of analytics in the field of medicine, data privacy, and AI applications. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jayson. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so we'd like to start off with having you tell us a little bit about what brought you into the field of healthcare. And we kind of want to know what catalyzed your enthusiasm in connecting this with technology-assisted analytics.
Yeah, I started my journey in AI and healthcare informatics about 15 years ago, where I started writing code and also building ML models for healthcare, but also for business applications. So my background is mainly in information systems and business analytics with a strong foundation in computer science and engineering. That was my bachelor's degree. My journey actually started by my passion for data-driven decision-making, and also through my experience leading multi-million-dollar research projects in AI, machine learning, and healthcare.
Great. So when it comes to this discipline of machine learning and generative AI and large language models, were there any particular breakthroughs during this journey of yours that you noticed in terms of innovations, maybe in the early 2010s?
Absolutely. So when we started doing AI, it was mainly in the lab. It was mainly research within the VA grants. We were looking at patients' data. We had millions of records, and we were trying to analyze that data to extract knowledge or information from that data. Today, we see more of the AI being used in the business. So we see these predictive models being used in the business, and even in healthcare now, there are many AI models that are at hospitals. They help with diagnostics. They help with personalized medicine. We see a lot of AI in fraud detection, in trading, in risk assessments, in finance. So what I have observed is we were working on AI models in the background, in the research side of it, but today we see more of it shifting in the business, and we see a lot of business applications of AI.
Right. So in terms of these applications, business applications, were there any developments that impacted how businesses themselves were designed in terms of their processes and implemented? Maybe there are some examples of a situation that could demonstrate this, like, for example, the flower shop topic that we had?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So a few years ago, we started doing business applications. I also teach the capstone course for our MSIS program, where we partner with companies in the industry, and we complete a project using analytics and AI. It's basically predictive modeling that we are using, or what we refer to today as traditional AI. One example was a contract or a project that we completed with a flower company. Their problem was that they were supplying grocery stores and large surfaces with their flowers, and they didn't have information of which flowers would be sold. And because flowers are perishable items, we had to have an accurate model that would predict how many flowers would be sold at any point in time. So we started building these predictive models, and we used all sorts of data. So we used weather data, we used events data in every location, geographic location. But then what we also did, we started getting feeds from the cameras pointing at those flowers, and we were detecting the flowers or the bouquets that were sold by the end of the day. And that was very helpful, and it helped improve the accuracy of the predictive model a lot, because now we had better data to work with. We knew exactly which flowers or which bouquets were sold at a time. So we were able to help the company, one, predict which bouquets are going to be sold in the future, and two, to replenish their inventory.
Yeah, great. That's a good example to bring up. And the next thing we want to talk about is sort of the economics behind it. There's this concept referred to as AI entrenchment, where just a handful of big tech firms, they can enjoy sort of almost a global dominance, so to speak, and it makes competition fairly impossible for the startups. And I know you have a lot of experience in the startup world. Could you try to debunk that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So we see the larger companies building these models, the OpenAI and the Google and the Amazon building these models. But we see today a lot of startups using these models because we can customize them. There is this new technology called RAG, R-A-G, or GraphRag or Neo4j. What these tools or what these methods allow us to do is to train those large language models on business data. So these chatbots are no longer generic, giving answers to everyone from a very generic perspective, but they're mainly trained on the business data. So when we ask questions, or when the customer is interacting with that chatbot, the chatbot is answering questions based on the data from the business. So if, for example, we are selling flowers and the customer is asking about a specific flower, the traditional ChatGPT would say, okay, these flowers are available in the market. But for our purposes, if it's training on our business data, it could say, oh, we don't have this type of flower, we have this one, or we will get this type of flower in a week. So it provides answers and responses that are specific to the business. And this is how smaller businesses are using the AI today. And also, I have been to different countries. I was in Thailand for a conference in December, and I was also in Europe right after that. And what I hear from the experts is every country is building their own large language models. And we see France, for example, they just released their large language model, which seems to be very effective. So we're going to see a lot of competition moving forward from other countries, but also we're going to see the smaller businesses finding a way to leverage the AI to their own benefit.
Baran, you got
Okay,
the next topic?
Yeah. Talking about how we have this role of technology being incorporated into the business's abilities and capabilities, we've also developed this understanding that technology over the decades itself is not necessarily some panacea for a business to use for all of its problems, which means that technology, it's not just simply having the technology, but how that technology is used to address a company's problems. So this being said, to generate this value added from artificial intelligence being a part of the business's processes, are there particular lessons that past managers and individuals have kind of created through their failures of adopting the technology properly that future business leaders and actors can learn from when it comes to AI's applications?
Oh, absolutely. So the first recommendation, the first lesson that I would mention is to managers and to leaders who want to use AI. And today, everybody wants to use AI. It seems like just add in the word AI to your business helps improve your stock value and helps improve your revenue. So you get that buzz around AI. However, the managers and leaders have to be very careful. Not every problem requires AI. So that's number one. So there are problems that companies come to us and they say, oh, we want to use AI for this. And I say, okay, why not use an Excel sheet? So there are certain problems that are not appropriate for AI. So that's number one. very important to remember. There are other tools out there, and there's software out there that can solve issues that we don't necessarily need AI. AI is very expensive. It's expensive to customize. It's expensive to use. So unless you need it, you don't use it. So that's one. Number two, let's say we have applications and we have this data that we can monetize, or we can improve our business objectives in any way using AI, and that's great. Also, we have to think about the people aspect. So whenever we're talking about AI, we're talking about automation. So we're talking about personalization. We're talking about augmenting the people's productivity. So there are different ways to implement AI. You can implement AI to automate routine tasks. And when you do that, you have to be very careful about adoption and about layoffs. Are you going to lay off people? How many? And how is that going to impact your company? So these are the issues that you have to think about when it comes to automation. When it comes to augmenting people's productivity, you need to be very careful about adoption. The algorithms are out there and there are tools out there available, but it's not enough to just buy the tool or to just develop the tool. You have to have people using it. So if you have the tool in-house, but nobody wants to use it, you're not going to reap the benefits. It's not going to be helpful. So building the AI by itself is not enough. Before you build the AI, start talking to your people. Whoever is going to be interacting with that AI, are they ready? Do they want to use the AI? You're bringing the AI to help them improve their productivity and augment their abilities, but are they willing to use the AI, and two, are they able? So one thing that I tell all the companies is you need AI literacy. Before you introduce AI in your company, you need to teach your people what is AI and what is this tool that you're bringing in? What does it do? How is it going to benefit them? How is it going to change their life? Is it going to replace them at one point? That brings us to the next problem. If you're using AI, you have to be very, very careful about privacy of the data, privacy of the people, and governance of the data that you're using. So that's another recommendation that I would say that I would give to the leaders is be very mindful of where the data is coming from, how the data is used, where the data is stored. And in our MBA program, we have a full course on data governance just because it's really important. It's very important to know how to handle this data that the AI is using. So these models thrive on lots and lots of data, but we need to be careful if we're using our customer data, how we're using that data, how to make sure that we preserve our customers' privacy while using that data. So all of these are very, very important aspects to think about and to use before implementing AI.
Right. So taking that into consideration, these different things that individuals, but also organizations, entities need to prepare themselves for, such as AI literacy and these kinds of things. If we want to take a predictive lens to the conversation, maybe in the next 10 to 20 years, would you be able to maybe offer prediction for which industries could be most impacted by AI as a revolutionary technology, or maybe they'll be slower to adopt and change with the technology?
Okay, so one prediction that's easy to make is we're going to have AI and we're going to have AI everywhere. So that's the general statement that we can make. And when I was at the conference in Thailand, again, we had an expert from the White House explaining how we are dealing with this as a country, and that person was also advising Thailand on how to do it at their level, right? So the way that it's being done today, and I believe this is data that's available to the public, is we are looking at the different jobs in different industries. We are making a map of the tasks that are needed for every job, and then what are the skills needed for that task. And then we try to see which one would disappear or which one would change. So the prediction is some jobs are completely going to disappear and some jobs are going to change. For the jobs that are going to disappear, in that chart that we're building as a country, we're looking at what are the jobs that are similar in task and skills where we can move our employees. So it would be a very easy transition. So people who can do task ABC, if we train them for 6 months, we can get them to do task XYZ because task ABC is going to disappear. Right. So that's for the disappearing tasks, and that's for the disappearing jobs. Now, other jobs are going to change. And you asked about which industries will see more change. And I would say there are some professions that are gonna remain, but the nature of the job will change. So, for example, I get MDs asking me, is our job going to disappear? And I say, not anytime soon. And the reason being, as of today, at least from building these models from an engineer perspective, writing code, what I can tell you is the AI today is able to answer simple questions. So think of it as a rookie doctor, right? It can answer if you say, okay, I have a patient with diabetes. The AI can answer and say, all right, well, this patient needs to take this type of medication. They need to go on this type of diet, maybe exercise 30 minutes, 3 times a week. Easy, right? And we can get the AI to do that. The AI can write notes for doctors, simple task. The doctor is telling the AI what's going on, and the AI can structure the notes, very simple. So these are simple tasks that we can automate. However, what we see today is also with the AI and with improvements in AI, we see more complex patients. So in the ER, in 5 years ago, only like maybe 5, 6 years ago, whenever there would be a 90-year-old showing up at the ER, it would be something novel. So everybody would be looking at that person, trying to talk to that person, and we would see maybe 2 people a night. Okay. Now, today we see maybe half of the patients are over 80. And then those patients have survived cancer. They have had a stroke. They have had a couple of heart attacks. They have diabetes. They have high blood pressure. So that's a very, very complicated case. And as of today, we cannot handle those cases. And the data that we have or the models that we have are not trained to handle those cases. Now, in the future, would they be able to do so? We don't know yet. But as of right now, what I can tell you is the MD's job is going to shift to handling more complex cases rather than simpler ones. And similar to all other professions. So lawyers, the simple forms, simple contracts, ChatGPT can do, right? But when we get to the more nuanced contracts, that's where a lawyer's expertise is important, right? So I see a lot of shift in the nature of jobs rather than just completely all the jobs disappearing, but I see that across all industries. Now, the easier jobs like your cash register, the cashier's job, et cetera, so those routine, mundane tasks, those will disappear, right? But the professional jobs will remain. They will just change the nature of the job will change. And we see that also in our curricula. When we're at all universities, we see updates in our curricula based on this. So every few months, we meet with industry partners and we have AI experts and we see where we're heading, and we update our curricula based on how the nature of the job is shifting.
Right. That's very insightful. So taking the way the industries are anticipated to adapt and have to change with the technology over time, let's get a little bit into how we could expect the regulatory side of things to look. So for some recent context, in California recently, there was an attempt to pass legislation that was supposed to basically advocate for certain regulatory measures and development of AI. However, it didn't turn out to be a successful legislative push. So having explored some of the things that we've been talking about already, and maybe talking a little bit about the possible pitfalls of AI, what would you have to say about the general subject of AI regulation? So is this something that is a necessary evil? Is it something that prevents human progress? Is it where it needs to be currently? Is there some thoughts that you could share on this?
Oh, absolutely. I believe regulation of AI is extremely important. So we see a lot of people on different sides or camps, like you mentioned. Some people are saying these regulations are stifling innovation, and we don't need them. But I do believe that AI is very powerful, and it's going to get more powerful the better these models are going to be. So when we have such power, we need to ensure that we're using it for good rather than for bad. And a lot of times what I have seen and what any engineer would tell you is that there are unintended consequences. So we don't intend for bad things to happen. It's just that it's so difficult to test these algorithms, to validate these algorithms, that we may have consequences that we didn't expect in the testing phase. And that is why regulation is very, very important. And that is also one reason why ChatGPT is open to the public. So a lot of people think that ChatGPT or OpenAI people were just very nice and they wanted to share their algorithm with the planet. But the real reason is we are all testers. We are testing ChatGPT for OpenAI. So, and it's because these algorithms are very difficult to test, because when we get to a certain point, when we are using billions of parameters to train that model, it becomes extremely difficult to test these models, and we don't know what to expect. So one example is when some people were doing searches on Google back in the early days of Google. And some person asked about ways to commit suicide. And Google provided a whole list of ways to commit suicide. That's what I consider as unintended consequences of software or AI in general. And Google didn't know that, but after the fact, Google had to change. So now if you go to Google and you type in ways to commit suicide, the first things that you would see are links to help for suicide, right? So ways to help you. And then also we have seen in the early days of ChatGPT where people were asking about racist questions, and now ChatGPT is trained to say, I'm not going to say that, or I'm not going to follow through with this conversation, etc. So yeah, testing is extremely difficult, and that is why regulations are important. It's important to have these regulations in place to be able to help make sure that the AI that we're building is for good and it's serving us rather than being against us. So the only issue with that from an expert perspective is we want experts to be involved in these decision making, because a lot of times, unfortunately, the people who are building these regulations have no clue what AI is or what AI does or what AI is capable of, and that's a problem. But in healthcare, there was an effort to put in a great team of industry partners, of researchers, and they worked with policymakers to build regulations for healthcare. So now any AI software that's out there has to go through rigorous testing and has to abide by these standards, which I think is fantastic. It's not perfect and it's not going to be perfect, but it's great. It was built by top experts in the field. They know what they're doing, and we absolutely needed that, and we need that in other industries as well. You either use AI or you die. There is no other alternative. AI is here and AI is here to stay. And if you're not using AI, you're already behind. So when I was teaching my course this year at the beginning of the academic year, the first session, I was asked, "Oh, can we use ChatGPT?" I said, "Oh yeah, absolutely. You please use ChatGPT. One, you make your life and my life easier. Two, you need to train to use ChatGPT, because when you're out there, you're going to have to use it. That's the minimum. That's the lowest bar. And you need to learn how to use it. You need to perfect your prompts. You need to be able to communicate or interact with that tool. And also you need to be able to validate your responses, because as an expert, that is your job. You need to get the response from the AI and validate it. Because you're liable at the end of the day. If I'm a doctor and I'm using any AI tool and the patient dies, I'm going to be sued, not the engineers, because I am liable, because I am responsible, right? So it's very important for people to, one, learn how to use these tools, and two, validate, because at the end of the day, it's humans with humans. We are interacting with each other as humans, and we are responsible for the decisions that we make. So when we say leaders, decision makers, it's us, it's the humans. It's not the AI. And we have seen the example where United came out and said, "Oh, the reason that a lot of the claims were denied was because our AI was not perfect." And the answer is, you cannot do that. You simply cannot do that. You are the decision maker. You are the person reliable or responsible for those decisions. Yes, you can use AI all you want, but you have to validate, you have to review, you have to, because at the end of the day, you're responsible. So if somebody dies, then that's on you as a human. So yeah, I don't think we need incentives for businesses to use AI, but I think that we're heading that way anyway. Everybody will have to use AI to remain competitive. Also, in fraud detection, for example, like another application, we have to use AI. Why? Because the hackers are using AI. So in cybersecurity, we have to be using AI because we have to compete, right? So I don't think we need monetary incentives to use AI, but rather maybe incentives to train people on AI. And we see some of that. So we see governments at the local, state, federal, all levels, providing funding to train people on AI, because the government is realizing that AI is here and AI is here to stay.
So,
Very good.
Doctor, one of the things that we were interested in, I guess we could talk about it in the context of the classroom, but maybe even beyond. In your view, and you've had how many cohorts of the program?
Well, I've been teaching at FIU for 8 years now, so yeah.
But
Quite a few.
specifically in business analytics?
Yeah, so since I started, I was teaching the capstone course of the MSIS. Our MBA in analytics started 2 years ago.
And right, so we were wondering, in your view, how can AI serve as a tool for sort of breaking down these socio-cultural, economic, and maybe gender barriers that have historically been limited in the benefit of emerging technologies?
So I believe that today we see a lot of tools available to more people, right? So in the past, for example, and I'm talking ancients, and that's going to show my age, we had to purchase servers to be able to do any sorts of analytics or AI, right? But today we don't need to because we have the cloud. So for $12 a month, you can have a cloud, a Linux box on the cloud, and you can do any processing that you want, okay? And you can even use servers for much less than that. In Google servers, you can use per transaction, right? So that helps provide access to everyone. So anybody who wants to use AI could use it because now it's cheaper to access these tools. And also for trainings, yeah, we have our programs at the university, at the bachelor's level, master's level, and then we have all these certifications that are available by all the companies for free. So anybody could learn, regardless of gender, regardless of socioeconomic status, anybody could learn these tools and they can start using them. So that's another thing. The third thing is these tools required a very high level of expertise when it came to coding. And today we see no code tools. So you can literally build a predictive model without writing a single line of code. So tools like RapidMiner would allow you to do all sorts of predictive modeling, text analysis. You can do NLP. You can develop any type of model without a single line of code. So what that does is it levels the field. So anybody who wants to use AI now is able. Now are they willing? That's the other question.
Yeah, and this sort of naturally leads us into our next discussion, which is about sort of the three main schools that have come about in behaviors or attitudes towards AI. There's sort of optimists, there's pessimists, and there's people who are realists, like how we would consider yourself to be. Now, we think the AI optimists, they're mainly inspired by AI as a driver of innovation, economic growth, and just improving the overall well-being of humanity, right? And they assume that humanity will develop with AI in an almost egalitarian way, and it'll solve the challenges that the world faces. It'll make new industries, and it'll really just augment or enhance human capabilities. So what are your thoughts regarding this idea of an inevitable positive outcome?
I position myself as a realist, but more on the optimist side,
Right.
just because I believe I'm more passionate about technology and engineering in general. I do believe that tech has been helping us for years, and I believe that it will continue to help us as humans. Now, I know that some people are saying that AI is going to be way more intelligent than us, and it can provide a solution for world peace, and it's going to solve the problem of hunger all over the world. I'm not sure about that part, but but in general, I see AI as helping us as human beings as long as we use it the right way. So again, I would say, and I will always say, AI is very powerful. And what I tell my students right before they graduate on the last day of class is, now you have the power. You have the power of AI, and it's up to you to use it either for good or to use it for bad. So as long as we use it for good and we use it the right way, I truly believe that AI will help us tremendously. We just need to make sure that we are using it to our benefits. One example, very trivial example with doctors and documentation. We had built a tool. I know there are several tools out there that record the patient-doctor conversation. So when you go to the doctor's office, instead of them just typing and not looking at you and not caring or feel like they're not caring about what you're saying, this tool allows them to record the entire conversation, and then it generates an entire notes for them to submit with the claim, so they can actually improve eye contact with the patients and also it would save them a lot of time. So in healthcare, we used to call that doctor's pajama time. So after the whole day of work, the doctors would go home and they would write their notes. So they spend an extra 2 or 3 hours just writing their notes, which was basically unfair. So this tool was helping them or is helping them save a lot of time and then communicate with the patients, et cetera, which is all fine and great. And in theory is perfect. And when we were building the tool, we were really hopeful that it's going to help human lives and it's going to help improve the doctor's life and help improve the patient's experience. All of that sounded great. Now, a few months later, when we see these tools being used in the practice, what we see is doctors using these tools, and yes, it saves them documentation time, but what ends up happening, now they see more patients. So yes, it's improved their productivity. Did it improve their lives? Not really. Did it improve the patient experience? Not really, because now the office manager who assigned 4 patients in an hour now is assigning 6 patients in an hour, right? So it didn't serve us as human beings. So that's where we need to be very careful. We need to have our goals in mind. And whenever we're using these tools, we need to keep that in mind. Our end goal is to be better as humans and to improve human lives. Let's not forget that. Yes, accuracy is amazing. These tools are wonderful and they can achieve so much, but we have to be mindful of the end goals, which are always related to humans.
Yeah, and that really echoes sort of the main tenet of the AI realist almost philosophy. It's that it's neither the ultimate solution or an existential threat, but it's something that just requires responsible management.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now even in research, so in the past, when we were building these tools, we used to have metrics like accuracy, and that was enough to say this algorithm is great and we're going to publish the paper and we're done. Now today, accuracy is no longer enough. So we use accuracy as the baseline metric, but we also look for metrics for fairness and metrics for bias and the metrics for actual ROI. Is this tool actually helping the business? And then metrics related to user experience. How is this algorithm or tool, whatever we're building, is helping the humans? And we're developing new metrics that we didn't use in the past because now we can objectively measure those and see how our tools that we're building in research and we're building in the industry is really or are really impacting human lives.
Baran, do you want to do the question about sort of the average consumer?
So concerning the average consumer,
Right. The last one before we close?
yeah, we could do that because we are kind of running short on time at this point, so we want to make sure that we could do this, catch in this part. So some of the economic and social theories that have kind of developed over the years highlight this recurring observation about technology, particularly when it's new, novel, and vogue, is almost always misunderstood and not effectively appreciated by the business leaders and the average consumer. So based on what you've been attending these conferences or listening to interviews online and these kinds of things, how do you feel the general public perception of AI currently stands?
I believe that the public is along the lines what Jayson was saying. We see the public in different eras or in different camps. So some people are very, very skeptical and very scared. I see a lot of people being scared. And when I'm on stage, I'm presenting, I always get the same question that comes back and says, is AI gonna gonna ruin the world and we're all gonna disappear. And so I see some of that, and people are scared because people don't see what we see in the labs, but they don't see the shortcomings of this technology. And my answer is, I wish I could bring you to my lab and you could see that this technology is nowhere near perfect. We are the ones building it. We are the ones guiding it. So we can determine what we do with it. And at the end of the day, let's say hypothetically, let's say these machines go rogue, unplug them. they work with electricity, unplug all of them, and we'll be fine. We'll be totally okay as humanity, right? So yeah, the general public is divided. So some people are very reluctant, and that also impacts the use of AI, which I believe is unfortunate. So a lot of people are so scared that they don't want to use it, which is very unfortunate, because these tools can be are very useful.
Right. And I remember last week you tried to kind of hint on something you'd like to close with about the importance of critical thinking and responsibility, specifically as it relates to AI.
Absolutely. That's also a very, very important aspect that we are now looking at in research, which is how AI is impacting our critical thinking. And a lot of the research and a lot of the highlights has been on improving the AI and how the AI could be better. So even like Baran, you were saying, the government is spending so much money to improve these tools, to improve the AI, billions of dollars, but we're not thinking about how the AI is impacting us, how the AI is impacting us as human beings. So if we keep using the AI and lose our abilities, then that is a big problem. And one example that I could provide is when you're using Waze or Apple Maps or Google Maps to go somewhere, and you keep using it all the time, you're not paying attention to the road. So if you don't have that tool, you'll never be able to go back, right? So now we become so dependent on these tools that we start to lose our critical thinking abilities. And that is a problem, and we are investigating this problem in healthcare. So we are doing actually a real study with medical doctors to investigate and see how the AI is impacting the critical thinking of our experts. And we're also doing that with students. So yes, students are using ChatGPT, and it's making them more productive, and they can do more in a much shorter period of time. But is that impacting their critical thinking abilities? We're not sure. We're still investigating. But I think this is an aspect that needs attention.
Yeah,
Well, that's great. That's a great close. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's I was gonna make a similar comment, Jayson. So that's great perspective and a great way to finish off the conversation. So, Dr. Bouayad, thank you very much for giving us your time. This was very much appreciated. Being able to support the podcast and Jayson and my efforts to kind of give the FIU community, the students, some sort of access to the expertise of much of the faculty and staff that works there. So we really appreciate you giving us this opportunity to get some information and knowledge from you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, and best of luck. This is a great initiative. I really like it.
And that concludes our 8th episode of the Panther Business Briefing, and third and final on the topic of artificial intelligence. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we revisit our most notable topics across our previous series and share the insights we've gained along the way.